Again, as I like to look at some of the MODIS images, this morning we're looking at Terra, and this is the true color image, looking down on the old departed vegetation from the last fall, brown everywhere. We've gone from about an 80% snow cover 2 weeks ago in the NERC area down to about 40% this morning. You can see the Tug Hill Plateau, the Adirondacks, spine of the green, White Mountains, and most of Maine still snow covered, except for southwest Maine. I'd like to look at the false color imagery, and what stands out here is the cyan color is pretty good snow coverage and ice coverage, and it tapers to a light green, which is like sparse snow coverage, and then the natural colors of brown are showing up across most of the Northeast. As we hone in on the upper Connecticut River basin, we notice there's still quite a bit of snow water equivalent and snow here for melt to continue, as the river is expected to go near minor flood this weekend. So the service area highlights for the last 2 weeks, if we look at the 3 maps provided by the Northeast Regional Climate Center, the bottom center map shows that for the last 2 weeks, we've still been colder than normal across much of our service area except western New York. And that same area, if you look on the left map, that same area that was colder than normal had normal to below normal precipitation that same 2-week period, with extreme western New York having slightly above normal precipitation. The far right graphic shows the last 30 days where just about all the Northeast has been 1 to 2.5 inches below normal for precipitation. So kind of a dry pattern continues. As we look at the 90 and 180 day through our county departure from normal precipitation maps, see we've been pretty dry across the Northeast in a 90 day, up to 4 to 8 inches of rainfall below normal in parts of upstate New York. And this is continuing in the 180 day, except the coastal areas of New England are a little bit wetter than normal. The U.S. Drought Monitor this morning shows that same area abnormally dry across quite a bit of interior New England, northern New England, into much of New York, according to the Drought Monitor. This hasn't changed much in the last week and a half. It's still 45% of that Northeast coverage map is abnormally dry. Our snow conditions have really changed in the past 2 weeks. The upper left graphic shows the snow depth, and you can see that elevations over 1,500 are still carrying snow in the Adirondacks to the Green Mountains, the Whites, and much of Maine, with western mountains of Maine still having over 20 inches of snow there. And the upper right graphic shows the snow water equivalent left, and we've noticed down here in southern Vermont, we still have some readings of 5 to 8 inches of snow water equivalent. Of course, these are over 1,500 feet elevation, and the aerial extent of this deep snow water equivalent is also shrinking quickly. As we go up into western Maine, we still have some areas of 5 to 8 inches of snow water equivalent remaining. The lower left graphic shows the snow itself is 32 degrees, ready to melt and melting very quickly. In the lower center graphic, the density of the snow is greater than 30%. And the right graphic shows the melt in the last 72 hours, which is anywhere from 1/2 to 1.5 inches, almost 2 inches of melt out of the snowpack. Nice, pretty slow melt. The real-time streamflow conditions this morning across much of the area, see the greens and blues, normal to above normal streamflow from snowmelt, basically snowmelt. And in Maine, we still have some iced up gauges. Groundwater conditions have also improved, where we have mainly normal groundwater conditions in southern New England. We still are carrying some real dry, low groundwater tables in upstate New York. Water supply, lake levels, New York City water supply has recovered dramatically from a 22% deficit 2 weeks ago. Now they're down to 7% deficit as they melted all this snow. And so they're going to have to look for replenishment through rainfall now for the next several months. Quabbin Reservoir normal, Situate Reservoir spilling 103% capacity, and Lake Champlain, the magenta line here, we finally got onto the melt season, and you can see the climb below normal with climbing to 97.5 feet. The drought severity, soils, and even fire weather map I put on here this morning. Long-term Palmer index showing mostly normal conditions across the Northeast. The upper right map showing some of the shallow crop moisture index normal to slightly wetter than normal. And just as interest, I put on this the warnings for the fire weather warnings are out in the counties late yesterday. This is for that very shallow duff layer of dead vegetation that is really dry above the shallow soils, because we had very low dew points and very low humidity the last 48 hours. We had some temperature rises over 40 degrees in the last couple of days, from lows around 30 in the morning to near 70 in the afternoon. Very dry conditions with some light winds, enhancing the fire danger. So where we've had some river ice and ice jamming, the picture here is of at Dickey, Maine, on the St. John River, ice jam in place, and other jams in place are on the Aroostook River at Washburn, East Branch of the Penobscot River about 4 miles downstream of Grindstone, Pleasant River near Milo, and other than that, many of the other rivers are opening or open, and the ice on them is very thin. But this is a good picture of some ice jamming up on the crown there of New England, up in the St. John River. We look at our forecast map at the RFC here. We have 3 gauges. We expect to go to minor flood in the next 3 days, all on the Hudson, on the Connecticut River, Dalton up in New Hampshire, and the Hartford to Middle Haddam, and the lower end of the Connecticut River. And we have 10 gauges near flood stage, alert stage, in the next 3 days. We look out a little bit further on a 3 to 7 day Met model ensemble forecast system, and we see the same smattering of alert to 30 to 70% chance of minor flooding on this graphic here, but nothing extraordinary at all. We've gone a little more than halfway now into meteorological spring. We've melted off a lot of snow, and we've had almost no flooding. Some occasional minor flood warnings have been out, but almost no flooding this spring, with the record snowpack and pretty deep sway across much of the area. We look back and we looked at where do we have spring flooding at the NERC, and where are we call the big offenders. So these numbers here and the IDs on the right are where we've looked at flooding since 2000 in January to May in our RFC area, and these places on the right here are IDs for the river locations and the number of floods we had since 2000. And you see that the lower Connecticut River has flooded 20 times at Hartford in 15 years, 16 times at Middletown in 15 years. The lower Housatonic, 16 times in 15 years at Stevenson, although there is some operations going on there. Patuxent River at Cranston, 14 times in 15 years, nearly every year. We have some minor flooding or more. Otter Creek at Center Rutland, 13 times in 15 years, and so on. So if anyone wants to look at this a little bit further and understand the IDs here for the river locations, we can certainly tell you that. Currently, Burlington, Caribou, Gray, and Taunton are issuing flood warnings. Of course, Taunton is just issuing here for the lower Connecticut for this weekend. Gray, Maine is up in Dalton on the Connecticut. Caribou is for some ice jam flooding at Dickey, and Burlington for one of the smaller rivers in their area. And Ron will take over the meteorology part of the presentation. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ron Horwood. I'm the senior meteorologist here at the Northeast RFC, basically in charge of the rainfall, snowfall, and temperature forecast for all our river basins. And looking ahead, the first week we're expecting generally below normal temperatures with above normal precipitation, and that pattern may be continuing in through week 2 as well. The image on the left is our QPF forecast from this morning. There's a cold front approaching from southeast Canada. It's pretty dry in advance of the front, so we expect just kind of garden variety showers with QPF only up to around 1/4 of an inch. And the image to the right is the 7-day expected precip from NCEP in Washington, which shows amounts reaching near to over 2 inches, especially in southern and eastern New England, and we'll discuss why that is as we go ahead. But as Ed said last week at last briefing, below normal temperatures this time of year will still be melting some of the snowpack, especially at the lower elevations. So these images are showing a real dramatic shift anticipated over the next few weeks from what the pattern has been most of the winter. The top one is the North Atlantic Oscillation, or NAO index, and basically it's been in a neutral to positive phase most of this year. However, we're seeing strong signals in all the ensembles that it's going to go abruptly negative. And what that usually means is we get blocking in the North Atlantic and a shift of the jet stream to the south, and it can usher in some cold air to the northeast United States. At the same time, that PNA index on the bottom is expected to go positive, which favors upper-level troughing along the eastern seaboard. So you put these two together and you look at some of our medium-range numerical weather model guidance, and it looks like we may be entering a cool and rather stormy period over the next couple of weeks. These are the 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks from the Climate Prediction Center down in Washington. And it looks like the center of the cold expected to slowly migrate from the upper Midwest into New England over the next 14 days. And precipitation, again, like I said, with that positive PNA pattern and troughing along the eastern seaboard, above normal precipitation is expected, especially near the coast. The longer-term outlook for May, continuing the trend that we had most of the winter, near to maybe slightly below normal temperatures, with not as strong a signal in precipitation. As we get into May, the regime starts to shift to more convectively driven precipitation, so it gets a little bit harder to predict, a lot harder to predict, actually. So this is the image from the surface weather forecast map for early on the 21st, or this upcoming Monday. We're going to have one strong low moving up into the northern Great Lakes, southern Canada, but there are signals in basically all of our model guidance of a redevelopment along the coast. So we're expecting some rather moderate to heavy rainfall to develop, especially across southern and eastern New England. The accompanying 500 millibar chart shows a deep trough dropping into the northern Great Lakes, and again, that troughiness just beginning to set up on the east coast. It's not as marked as you would think by looking at those previous climate indices. But further down the road, this is the surface map for the afternoon of a week from Monday. This is from the GFS model, Ed, is that correct? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is from our GFS model, and it's showing a strong wound-up surface low pressure with a really deep Atlantic inflow of heavy rainfall into southern New England. But up across north, anywhere north of that blue line, the temperatures near and above 5,000 feet are going to be below zero, at least the model thinks it is. So we can't rule out a late season snowstorm still up across northern New England, especially in this pattern that we're going into. And here's the accompanying 500 millibar chart. Now we have deep troughing along the eastern United States and kind of a blocking pattern further to the north up just south of Greenland. So when we see this type of pattern, which is common in spring, these upper closed lows can lead to strong storm systems that become cut off and can spin around for several days. So we're going to have to watch the pattern closely for heavy precipitation over the next 2 weeks. The flood potential map as a whole going forward, we can see that it's above normal across a lot of western Maine, the western Maine mountains, and most of the Connecticut River Valley, and that's basically due to all the snow that's in the headwaters of the Connecticut and the western Maine mountains, and that snow will be coming down, especially down the reach of the Connecticut River Valley at the same time as we're going to be vulnerable for some locally heavy rain events over the next 2 weeks. So for that reason, above normal flood threat continues in these areas. For the rest of the region, by and large, we've really dodged a bullet with some of the deep snow cover we've had this year. We've had a very nice, orderly snow melt with dry weather and cool temperatures.